Hello. I know you were all looking forward to a video with Caroline Pankhurst, but she's not available today. Today, the only person that was available who could talk to you about courage and change, I thought, was Black Widow. Enjoy your video.
Hi, I'm Caroline. We've always needed change in the world. It's more apparent now than ever how broken so much of our society and planet is. We exist in a world of constructed discourses and narratives that shape the way we think and feel about our place in the world and the opportunities available to us. This shapes both the structured systems and societies we live in, as much as it shapes how we understand our own place in it, the opportunities, inequalities and influence we have over the shape of our own futures. Our societies appropriate discourses. Our present becomes the future's history. It's therefore our individual and collective responsibility to understand the origins of our current ways of understanding ourselves and society so we can begin to question their legitimacy and resist them. Where there is knowledge, there is power. Power is not a property of a person or a group. It's something that we can all exercise. This requires we are courageous, we are brave, and we embrace change. That is going to require that we are all brave, that we make the choice to be courageous, that we recognise our responsibility to ourselves and each other to consciously question, challenge, and attend to the narratives we situate ourselves in. What purpose do they serve? Who do they serve? And how might they serve us better? We need to be brave, to choose courage, not just for ourselves, so we live a meaningful and purposeful life, but for our mental health, our teams, our communities, our families, and for the future of our society and planet. Courage sits at the heart of everything I do. Had I not chosen to walk the path of courage, without question, Be Braver would not exist. The Be Braver programme would not have been created. The transformations I've seen in my clients would not have happened. I wouldn't have dared embark on this PhD. The activist and campaigning group GM for Women 2028 would not exist. And I certainly would never have had the fringe it took me 40 years to decide to get cut. Yet, I can't now imagine how my life would be without any of these things. To achieve for me what was a seemingly impossible goal. Yet through modelling and understanding courage, by choosing to be my own hero, by being inspired by those who have achieved the seemingly impossible, I have cracked the code of courage as the route to meaningful change. You can learn it, I can teach it, and we all absolutely should practice it. Every single one of us could be and should be a change maker. So who did I first model courage on that inspired me to change the direction of my own life and find the confidence in myself to do it? You would be forgiven for thinking it was Black Widow, which I'm afraid to say it isn't. I honestly just love finding an excuse to spend the day dressed up and pretending that I'm saving the planet alongside my Black Panther sidekick. No, my story of modelling courage is grounded in a story of a much more influential hero of mine. 10 years ago, maybe longer, I went to see a play at the National Theatre called Her Naked Skin. If ever there was a story to evidence that theatre, really powerful theatre, can change lives, then this one should be it. At the time I was married, miserably working, or should that be married miserably and working? No, I think it was married miserably and miserably working in advertising, riddled with imposter syndrome, depression, no self-confidence, a PTSD diagnosis, living in London, dreading getting up every day. So many situations filled me with crippling fear. Sharing ideas was the last thing I would have dreamed of ever doing, never mind acting on. Change terrified me. But the gift of the diagnosis of PTSD was I discovered and fell in love with psychology. So in some ways I'd already begun the journey of understanding how to make my mind and heart work better together. So the play I saw those 10 years ago was called Her Naked Skin, and it was written by Rebecca Linkovich. It was the first female play to be staged on the Olivier Theatre. It was a love story about two women that created one of those watershed moments in my life that seemed to, out of nowhere, unexpectedly punch me in the face and leave me completely floored. The backdrop to the story was the suffragette movement. Why, as a woman in my early 30s, had I no knowledge about the women's rights movement? Why had my education failed to give me the insight and perspective into such a significant part of history? How little had I understood about how equality and power had influenced my understanding of my place in the world, my experiences, and what to expect from it. I left the theatre that night feeling embarrassed, uneducated, ashamed, angry, violated. I recognised how patriarchal society was, how I'd thought being a woman was a disadvantage, a weakness. A wholesale questioning about everything I knew and understood about the world began to unfold. Rebecca very kindly gave me her reading list for the research, so I started to read it. Read and read, read and read. Knowledge is power. Combined alongside the postgrad in psychology I was doing, connecting the dots to a catalogue of lived experiences, which I'm sure many of us have had, I created some new perspectives to start to examine my understanding about the world, my place in it, and my hopes for it. As I said, the suffragettes were at the heart of the play. The depictions of them being force-fed were some of the most difficult scenes I've ever witnessed in the theatre, and I was blown away by the strength and bravery of these women. I now understand that what I was seeing was courage walking. I have a real bugbear when people say they are proud of someone. It diminishes the person in some way, I always find. You can be proud of yourself and have an admiration for someone else. Anyway, I wasn't proud of the suffragettes, but they gave me pride in being a woman, something I had never felt until that moment. I started to question what was the difference between an ordinary woman like me and an extraordinary change maker like Emmeline Pankhurst. Emmeline and the suffragettes captured my attention more so than anyone else in the movement for a few reasons. The suffragette movement was born in Manchester, not far from where I was born and where I now live. The second was deeds, not words. When those in power refused to listen and hear their voices, they took to the streets. 3, they were some of the earliest brand and communication experts. They developed skills and ideas to promote, campaign and organise themselves in novel ways that were way ahead of their time. When peaceful rallies and leafleting failed as a strategy, they responded by creating their own newspapers. They made their famous sashes, invited sympathetic journalists to work with them. They created campaigns you'd pay an agency to do these days. They had clarity about what they stood for and their values, the change they wanted to realise and why it mattered. This gave them the motivation to be resilient and persist with grit and determination. They had beliefs in themselves, their strategies and each other. They failed better and failed forwards. They learned and adapted. They changed tack when things weren't working, but they never gave up. So what did I and do I now continue to learn about the difference between these remarkable change makers that history recorded as having been so extraordinary and the ordinary everyday people like you and me? I learnt that we can all be change makers, that we can teach, learn and practice courage, that we can choose to be our own heroes, that clarity, confidence, courage and connection underpin the foundations for creating change, that creativity, growth and innovation follow on from choosing courage. Clarity gives us the compass to set our direction, giving bravery a purpose and meaning. Confidence gives us fuel to keep our journey powered with the knowledge, mindset, skills and understanding we need. Courage guides the paths we choose and the ones we avoid, equips us with pillars on which we lean, so when we hit stumbling blocks with clarity and confidence we find the resilience to persist. Connection gives us the passion and the compassion and the communities which we need to see change happen. Our army of stakeholders, cheerleaders, supporters and mentors who help to light the path and keep us grounded to our compass. Whether it be a brand, an innovator, a campaigner, a leader, even a child, it's the combination of mastering clarity, confidence, courage and connection which enables us all to be extraordinary. We are all capable of achieving the seemingly impossible, individually and collectively, once we understand how to operate our mindset to realise it. which is where understanding the psychology helps. We can affect incredible transformations in our lives when we learn how to operate that computer in our heads and understand those emotions in our hearts. When we figure out how to navigate the signals, when and where we need to recode some of the programming, it is then the seemingly impossible, unachievable, becomes very much within our grasp. Emotions, of course, play a significant part in this. For any decisive moment to walk the path of courage, we face a risk or a fear. Fear of inadequacy, inferiority, embarrassment, vulnerability, shame, failure, pain. Those are the cues we pick up on that trigger our tendency to play safe and avoid the risk the outcome of facing our fear might create. We might fail, we might get hurt, we might look stupid, we might lose our credibility, people might laugh. Indeed, people did sneer at the suffragettes. They failed many times. They were physically hurt many times. We only need to look at the protesters on the streets in America at the moment to see what courage walking looks like in the face of fear and risk. What courage with purpose looks like. Yet change doesn't happen without facing the uncertain and without taking calculated risks. Our beliefs about our place in the world itself, where the locus of control sits, what we think can and can't be done, can be unknowingly working against us. Most of this at an unconscious level. In the same way we understand unconscious bias operates in our assessments and judgments of others, we unconsciously inherit, observe and digest limiting beliefs that distort the way we understand our experiences, which in turn impacts our decisions, choices and drive to create and change. Some of us may be hindered by more limiting beliefs than others. Some may be innately more resilient than others, more risk aware. Some of us may have a clearer sense of what motivates us and what gives purpose and meaning to our lives. The fact is that all of these things can be learned, practiced and applied to enable us to live the extraordinary version of the life we want to live, not the ordinary one. To be the person who knows how to deliver fearless ideas and to come up with daring solutions. To be the person that understands what impact and change they want to realise in the world, what problems they are best placed to fix, and have the clarity, confidence, courage and connection to make it happen. Stories are powerful. The narratives we accept and live with hold power. As an audience of storytellers, you will know that as much as anyone. Many of us grew up with the stories of heroes coming to the rescue, of damsels in distress, and there wasn't much space in that narrative for a woman to be a hero, and I think that shaped my view of the world for a very long time, waiting to be rescued. The only hero now in the story of my life is me, from the day I decided to become my own hero and to model how to be braver. I chose to become a Pankhurst because the name inspires me every day to walk with courage, to live up to the values I stand for, to inspire much needed change and to help others find the courage to make the changes in society, their life or their business. We are all extraordinary people, we are all change makers, and we can all learn to be braver. We can all choose courage. But you don't all have to dress like this.